This is a test. For the next 30 seconds, this will be a test of the corporate takeover warning system. It is only a test. In the event of an actual takeover, you will be advised where to go and what channel to pay for. Not necessarily the news, with Tom Parks and Annabelle Gurwitch. Contributing editors Merrill Markoe and Damon Wayans. Commentary by Will Durst, featuring Joe Guppy, and special guest star Lucy Webb. Brought to you tonight by Batman 2, you know it's coming. And by the new Exxon, where we say, lighten up. And now, live from Los Angeles, not necessarily the news.
Good evening. I'm Annabelle Gurwitch.
And I'm Tom Parks. Well, the Bush administration today expressed its, quote, deep regret at the execution of 3 protesters in China. The announcement fell just short of total regret, but hell, it's a start. By the way, we've got an interview with President Bush later on in the show. Meanwhile, the government-controlled TV news in China now claims there was no massacre in Tiananmen Square, no students were killed, only soldiers were injured, the protesters were hooligans, and their leader was Morgan Fairchild. Yeah, that's the ticket, Morgan Fairchild. Annabelle?
Due to the recent rash of tragic accidents involving children and guns in Florida, the Florida legislature is considering a bill that would outlaw children in the state. And earlier this week, President Bush signed a bill honoring the current Supreme Court by officially making June 21st Backwards Day in the nation's capital. The Justice Department this week unveiled their solution to the backlog of criminals awaiting execution on death row. The new coin-operated electric chair promises to be easier to use and a real moneymaker. Tom?
Annabelle, you lived with William Hurt for a while, didn't you?
Of course not, Tom. I don't even know the man.
Too bad, guy's got money. Today, in a close 5-4 vote, the Supreme Court ruled that burning the American flag is protected by the First Amendment. Writing for the majority, Justice Scalia said, just don't let it touch the ground. In Hungary, Imre Nagy, a hero of the 1956 uprising, was honored with a new burial. In a related story, Hungarian authorities now admit the rebellion was ignited when a Budapest policeman attempted to arrest Zsa Zsa Gabor. In sports news, the NBA expansion draft was held last Thursday, and quickly taken in the first round were a 7-footer from Spain, an 8-footer from China, and from Gdansk, a 10-foot pole. Canadian sprinter Ben Johnson has finally confessed to using steroids at last year's Olympics to increase his muscular bulk.
I was ashamed of my family, and
now that he's admitted his mistake, Canadians are hoping to put the painful episode behind them. Meanwhile, across town, the Canadian soccer team was getting ready for next year's World Cup. We'll be right back after this.
Just called to say I love you. I just called to say how much I care. I just called to say I love you, and I mean it from the bottom of my heart.
Isn't there an old friend overseas who'd like to hear the sound of your voice?
Joanna Anders, Stanley Lowell Bingham, Marilyn Catherine Boone,
You've cut every corner, bent every rule, finessed every requirement, lucked out on every exam. You've bluffed and stalled, cheated and lied.
Donald Robert Gordon.
And yet, by some miracle, they never caught up with you. Now what? Why not try politics?
Now we have that interview with President Bush we taped just before we went on the air. In fact, we haven't had time to edit it, so this is the whole 5 minutes I was allowed with the president. The entire interview, just as it happened about an hour ago, with nothing left out. Let's roll that tape. Have we got the satellite? What's happening?
How are we doing on the...
Mr. President.
Before we leave here? How long are these?
This is a 5-minute interview, not necessarily
Mr.
the
President?
news.
I don't think he can hear me.
They're on HBO and they're on live.
Oh, they're live? All righty.
Mr. President. Mr. President, Tom Parks, NNTN. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Mr. President, we understand that you watch our show, but we haven't heard how you feel about it.
I like it.
You do?
It's been hard-hitting, but it has been fair, and it's been accurate.
Well, that's terrific. You sound like you've been a fan for a long, long time.
For 14 years.
14 years? No, you're confusing us with the other live show, the one that's on Saturday night.
On Saturday night, then.
Yeah, that's the one. Mr. President, with the time we've got left, could I ask you a tough question or two?
Yeah, shoot.
Sir, we're 6 months into your administration, and still the American people don't have a fix on who you are or what you're doing. Other world leaders like Mikhail Gorbachev have led the world in arms reduction talks. But you, the Bush White House, hasn't done a thing on that or a number of other problems. In fact, domestic problems have lagged way behind. Is that what you meant by a kinder, gentler nation? Silence on homelessness, silence on minority rights, silence on women's rights? Is that what kinder and gentler means?
No, kinder and gentler means...
What? Mr. President? Take your time. It has been suggested that kinder and gentler was the invention of a spin doctor to make you look compassionate.
I do believe in a kinder, gentler nation.
Well, you've convinced me. Let's move on to something else. Iran-Contra. I know you've denied ever being in the loop, but some people, inside people who knew the situation have suggested that you were in charge of everything.
No, totally unfair. That's ridiculous. That really is ridiculous.
I don't think it's that funny, Mr. President. And when you consider the consequences of what you've done, you should be ashamed of your actions.
I am not ashamed.
You're not ashamed, and yet you know deep down inside that trading arms for hostages was wrong, wasn't it? And that financing terrorists who are then going to finance the overthrow of another government was a disgrace, pure and simple.
It is a disgrace.
And yet, will you apologize?
Yes, yes, we will.
That's the least you can do for yourself and for the country.
That's 5 minutes.
Oh, it just seemed like we just got started. Oh, that was terrific, Mr. President. That was really great. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I really mean it. That was great. Did we get all of that? Oh, that was terrific.
That seemed like it was longer than 5
Cut
minutes.
it.
And now, with a report on refreshing beverages for sale, here's consumer advocate, the lovely Merrill Markoe.
Hi, I'm Merrill Markoe, and welcome to the portion of the broadcast where I discuss refreshing beverages. And not just any refreshing beverage. I'm referring to... enjoy. Steaming hot in the morning, or frosty cold at the end of a long, hard day. There's nothing quite like it. Adds just the perfect touch for whenever this sort of thing is appropriate. But don't take my word for it. Anchorman Tom Parks is out on the street to see what people think.
Do you enjoy a...
Yes, I do. Because it quenches my thirst.
Yeah, yeah.
They cool me down or warm me up or speed me up or slow me down. I drink it all. Just
If someone sets it down in front of you, you'll pretty much pour it down?
Yeah, that's just about it.
Now, what's the difference between drinking a cool, refreshing beverage and a nice steaming cup of hot tea?
The temperature.
Well, Merrill, the verdict's in. It seems like most of America either enjoys a hot, soothing beverage or a cool, refreshing beverage. Back to you.
Well, he's right. The verdict is in. Everyone enjoys a refreshing beverage. And if you'd like to see your beverage discussed here, write to me, Merrill Markoe, in care of Not Necessarily the News. I have access to cameras, studio time, I've got the eyeglasses, everything it takes to make your refreshing beverage a huge seller. And as long as I keep talking with this big smile on my face and a certain amount of authority, I bet no one notices this isn't part of the newscast. Watch and see. Back to you, Annabelle.
Thank you, Merrill. You're sure that was a news report?
Of course it was a news report. Would I be sitting on a set like this with a graphic like this if it wasn't?
Did that seem like a news report to you, Tom?
Seemed like a news report to me.
Oh, okay. Well, the moral majority is no more. It folded last week. Another victim of the truth in advertising laws. We'll be back after this.
Lontana mobile, qual più malvento, muto d'argento.
I decided long ago never to walk in anyone's shadow.
Lontana mobile, qual più malvento.
They can't take away my dignity.
Hi, I'm Joe Guppy with Not Necessarily the News, and I'm the NRA. You know, as a member of the National Rifle Association, I get concerned when I see guns taking such a beating these days, with people trying to regulate them and stop folks from having them. But there's a simple reason why guns are so popular today, as they have been since they were invented by the Chinese in the 1600s. See, guns are just the most effective way of getting the job done. Whether you want a piece of territory or just a seat on the bus, nothing beats a gun for getting attention now. Guns, they may not be perfect, but they're the best we've got.
And now, in other news, construction began last week on the 78-acre mega mall in Bloomington, Minnesota, expected to be the largest indoor shopping mall in the United States. As usual, the new mall will have only one bathroom, hidden somewhere behind the food emporium. Well, Carl Stokes, the former Cleveland mayor, arrested for stealing a 20-pound bag of dog food from a pet store last week, announced he will marry former Miss America, Bess Meyerson, also a kleptomaniac. While Stokes enjoys stealing tools and pet food, Meyerson leans more towards jewelry and clothing. Said Meyerson, "The first time I saw him, he stole my heart." Ronald Reagan was in the news again today. At the White House this morning, the official portrait of Ronald Reagan was shown to the public for the very first time. It was painted by the Reagan's good friend, Red Skelton. And now, political humorist Will Durst tackles the seamy world of sports.
Thanks, Annabelle. Hi, guys. So the Pistons took the Lakers in 4, huh? Yeah, that's called sweeping with a whisk broom. Come on, man, beating LA without Magic Johnson is like winning a marathon by taking a bus. Oh, aren't they the tough guys? I bet they could out-debate Quail. What next? Mike Tyson beating up Don Knotts? Someday, I want the Utah Jazz to go all the way, just so I can see the clips on the Today program the next morning showing the massive partying going on the night before in Salt Lake City. Yay, we won! I'm staying up till 11. Come on, guys, let's go down to the lake and float. I'm not a big Buckets fan myself, you know, but my wives are. And now that the interminable NBA season is finally over, it's time to turn our attention to baseball, the national pastime, in which the Cubs and the Orioles are both in first place, which I think are two of the 4 signs of the apocalypse. Another being George Steinbrenner exhibiting humility. Of course, with the Ayatollah dead, I expect a lot of volcanic activity this summer because it looks like there's going to be a power struggle in hell. And you got to remember, Oriole manager Frank Robinson last year said in Baltimore, pennant fever is a 24-hour virus. Commissioner Bart Giamatti is hearing Pete Rose's case next week, and things don't look good for the Cincinnati skipper as the commissioner's laying 3-to-1 odds. He's out of here! Wade Boggs is once again amongst the AL leaders in batting, although I hear his scoring statistics have plunged dramatically. And Jose Canseco is leading the All-Star voting amongst AL outfielders, even though he hasn't played a single game all year, due to a tragic wrist injury incurred while cocking his .357 Magnum. University of Oklahoma picked assistant football coach Gary Giggs to replace Barry Switzer. Ah, staying inside the program, good idea. They gotta have somebody who knows the alumni bag man. In ring news, the highly touted Leonard Hearns rematch ended in a draw. You believe this? Over $10 million a piece, and they can't even get it up for overtime? Jeez, man, even the pansy-ass golfers do sudden death. And speaking of extra innings, hey, is this the real time? Good night, everybody.
Thank you, Will. When a child misbehaves, who is responsible, the school or the parent? For an inside look, NNTN taped the following conference at a local school.
Please sit down, Mr. Baker. I expect you know why we've called you down here.
Well, I was a little surprised, although I'd had an inkling that it might be coming.
Yes, well, good. And that's going to make it a lot easier on everyone. We've been through this many times, Mr. Baker. Jimmy's had many problems at St. Bernard's, including the sled incident last winter.
You've heard him say many, many times, to you particularly, many, many times, I'm not going to throw him off the sleigh or her off the sleigh.
The fact is, Mr. Baker, is that he did throw several children off the sleigh, and with sufficient violence to break Paula Ferguson's ankle.
I think that they certainly forgave him that mistake.
There have been other mistakes.
That's going to happen.
Oh, at other schools, perhaps, but not here at St. Bernard's. Tell me, Mr. Baker, do you think that Jimmy feels threatened by other people around him?
He does not feel threatened by people around him.
Then why does he feel compelled to rub the children's noses in the mud?
He never rubs anybody's nose in it.
It's not the story I've heard.
Well, I think that there's more than just one story.
Yes, with your son, there always is. Mr. Baker, I hate to bring this up, but usually we can trace such behavior back to the home environment. For example, loud arguments, even behind closed doors.
No, no, no. We argued it out in front of him.
I see. Well, now we're getting somewhere. You see, arguments between parents in the home can create a lasting impression on a young child's mind.
I don't think you should expect anybody to be able to remember the details of everything.
Not everything, Mr. Baker, but parents fighting, yes. In any event, it doesn't excuse his behavior or pay for Paula Ferguson's medical bills.
No, of course it doesn't.
Good. I'm glad we're agreed on something. The bottom line is I am going to suggest that you send young Jimmy to military school. He can't do any worse there than he is doing here. And I'm sure that Jimmy will keep you posted.
I think he will, he might write.
Well, I hope he does. I hope he writes you. Thank you very much for coming down, Mr. Baker. Good luck.
Thank you.
Coming up, great balls of fire, too. The Jimmy Swaggart story.
A very wise man once said, college is not for everyone. And everyone is not for college. Think about that the next time college is discussed at your house. Because $100,000 is a terrible thing to waste. What can be more fun than taking care of a little baby?
Oops, baby had an accident. Oops, baby spit up.
Well, now it's more fun than ever with new Baby Puke and Poop. You'll also love Baby Up All Night. She cries at midnight, 2, 4, and 6 a.m. Baby Puke and Poop and Baby Up All Night. Teach your child what motherhood is really like.
Yesterday, former Congressman Pat Swindle lived up to his name and was found guilty of 9 counts of swindling. Next week should bring another long-awaited verdict in the trial of former Congressman Ralph Sodomy. A deadly disease known as MWS is killing millions of Americans. With a close-up look is NNTN's investigative reporter, Damon Wayans.
Quarter 3, Adam 5. Are you 10-8 from the car wash? 10-4, after that one.
Behind me lies the lifeless body of yet another victim of MWS. This, the third case today, is directly attributed to employment at that fast food restaurant over there.
Oh! 335! 335!
Can you tell us, does he have it? And if so, how bad is it?
Well, it's too early to tell how bad. Hi, Mom. But he's definitely got it.
MWS, minimum wage syndrome, the new killer. These are not isolated cases. It's a national epidemic. Reports indicate that 20% of the American working population is at high risk. And by the year 1993, that figure will have tripled. Teenagers, blacks, and this guy are particularly susceptible.
Get to work, you lazy sons of bitches! Well, I don't know what the problem is with this PMS thing. If they want a job, they can work here. If they want to make a living, maybe they should go out and sell drugs, like everybody else. It's the American way, right?
It's all economics. As you can see, this man's life signs are well below the poverty level. The doctor is attempting to bring up the patient's net worth by administering emergency cash. Apparently, it was too late. Let's see what experts have to say about MWS. Dr. Ududu, in layman's terms, would you explain the cause and effects of MWS?
Certainly. Minimum wage syndrome begins here at $3.35 an hour. At 8 hours a day, your monthly income would be $603, less 5 hours weekly for lunch, which brings the total to $527.62 monthly. Keep in mind the government subtracts 30%. Now, housing is $400 a month. This is in the worst neighborhoods, with the cost of food being approximately $225, an additional $90 for public transportation to and from work gives you a monthly deficit total of $345.66. As a result, these people simply lose their desire to live.
And is there a cure?
Oh, yes, of course there's a cure. You only need to raise the minimum wage.
Thank you, Dr. Odudu.
Oh, thank you.
Minimum wage syndrome. A costly disease we can afford to do without.
Thank you, Damon. Annabelle?
And in a sad note, Gabriela Fusco, one of Pablo Picasso's favorite models, was found shot to death on a sidewalk in Madrid today. Authorities say they have no clues.
And finally, he's the son of a career military man raised in the state of Georgia. He attended Emory University and went to receive a doctorate in modern European history from Tulane. Now a forceful, some would say controversial, some would say obnoxious congressman, he's written a book called Window of Opportunity that most critics threw out the window. Who is he? He's Newt Gingrich. And once again, he's our prick of the week.
By By the way, Newt Gingrich is now in the lead for Asshole of the Month. And that's not necessarily the news for tonight.
We'll be back live next week at the same time. Good night.
Good night.